Ambassador Michael Oren. Dr. Oren was the Israeli ambassador to the United States for many years. He is in the United States right now raising money for United Hatzalah. Yesterday, Dr. Oren, after our conversation, the fetching Mr. Hugh and I sent $1,000 to United Hatzalah because if you can do this work, if you can go out there and do this work, people who are listening to this show have to support you. Would you tell them again about United Hatzalah, about which I had not heard until yesterday?
Thank you, Hugh. Greetings from Philadelphia today, en route to Detroit, Cleveland, and Boston, whatever day this is. United Hatzalah is the most extraordinary organization I know. It's over 7,000 paramedical volunteers who have a little beeper. They get a beep. They leave whatever they're doing at any hour of the day, any day of the week. Many of them have ambucycles. These are motorcycles that does everything an ambulance does, except take you to the hospital. They can get you in a city within 90 seconds. If you're out in the countryside, they can get you within 3 minutes. They save literally thousands of lives. But during this crisis, on October 7th, they were the first on the scene. I was with a young paramedic last night, Yuval, here in Philadelphia, who was really within 2 hours of the attack on the scene, saw things that nobody ever wants to ever experience, but saved many, many lives with his own hands. Under fire, by the way. 2 of these volunteers were killed, 2 were taken hostage, many wounded. And by the way, it's Arabs and Jews. Arabs are joining in great numbers. It's quite an extraordinary organization. And by the way, it's all free. You don't pay a cent for it. So our stores were 90% depleted, just basic bandages, tourniquets, everything. So what I feel, hey, I don't know what day it is. I'm not quite sure what city it is, but to do this for these wonderful people who have saving lives, every dollar contributed to Hatzalah saves a life, and that's just the bottom line of it.
Well, we were glad to contribute, particularly because it's you and I trust you. We have a high trust relationship with Dr. Oren, and I believe the audience can. Now, Michael, I want to ask you about the reports of a hostage deal. I don't believe anything until an Israeli official tells me. What are you approaching these reports? What's your attitude towards them?
Well, again, same thing. The scuttlebutt. The scuttlebutt has 50 to 100 hostages, women, children, sick people, in return for 3 to 5 days ceasefire. And I have 2 problems with it. One is every day of a ceasefire costs us in terms of soldier lives. It may save a hostage life. It's going to cost us a soldier's life because Hamas is going to use it to reorganize, supply up on ammunition, everything. Move troops around in better ways, move terrorists around. There's also the question of, okay, who gets out and who stays in? And that creates a huge problem domestically within Israel. Imagine if, you have a loved one that's in, doesn't get out, but your neighbor has a loved one who's a hostage and does get out. That creates a real imbalance. You can say, okay, women and children, sick people, but then, what constitutes a child? What constitutes a sick person? It's going to get dicey. But let's leave it aside and no. Can I talk a little bit about the president's press conference last night? Because I was on Anderson Cooper live doing it, and I think I said something that I want your listeners to hear. Now, if you noticed, here it was a historic meeting, a very important meeting, the head of the 2 greatest superpowers in the world. And when it came to answering questions from the press corps, I would say about 70% of the questions were not about China, not about the United States, not about fentanyl, but about Gaza. And the questions from the mainstream press were overwhelmingly hostile to Israel, of course, by implication. When is the United States going to put its foot down and stop the massacre of thousands of Palestinians? When is the United States going to put its foot down and stop the desecration, destruction of Palestinian hospitals, et cetera? I don't know if you're watching this, Hugh. And I got to say, it came my turn to speak, and I was quite, I was taken aback. You say you're shocked but not surprised by any of these questions. But Joe really handled himself very, very well. He didn't give an inch. He didn't give a fraction of an inch. He says Israel has the right to defend itself. Israel's going to keep going until Hamas can no longer murder Israelis. They're using these hospitals Hamas is using these hospitals as headquarters. I mean, basically, didn't give an inch. And when it came my turn to talk, I think I said something I've been dying to say for a long time. I waited for this opportunity. This is what I said. People have been saying for weeks now, and you have these petitions that are being submitted from ex-State Department people and staffers on the Hill saying the administration's position in supporting Israel is hurting America internationally. It's weakening America in the Middle East. It's weakening America, in every place you can possibly weaken. It is just the opposite. The world is watching to see whether the United States stands by its allies. The world is watching to see if the United States is, after years of isolationism, is willing to project power. The Chinese are watching. They're seeing whether the United States stands by Israel, and the United States is willing to use those aircraft carriers, and they're drawing conclusions about Taiwan. I think the Russians are going to draw conclusions about Ukraine, too. This is an historic moment. And, get into politics, but this guy stood really, really strong last night. And that's the message that has to go out. America is back. America is willing to stand by its allies, and all these other bad actors had better take notice.
I'm glad he did that. I applaud the president when he does something well. I don't applaud him when he says crazy stuff in the Oval or Jake Sullivan says stuff. Don't go anywhere, Michael. I want to tape 3 extra minutes for you that I'll play on the podcast about Justin Trudeau, because I made the mistake of reading about Justin Trudeau right before I tried to go to sleep last night. And I was so angry that it took me a while to get to sleep. So I'm going to ask Michael Oren about that. Dan Senor is coming up next hour. Remember, IsraelRescue.org to support United Hatzalah. If Michael Oren can travel day after day on behalf of United Hatzalah, you can give $10, $100, $1,000. Go to IsraelRescue.org and be generous. I'll be right back, Dan Senor, next hour, and more Michael Oren on the podcast later today. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is a special tail end to my special podcast today. Dr. Oren, former ambassador of Israel to the United States, former deputy minister. Dr. Oren, Justin Trudeau yesterday assailed Israel again. And in this, he mimics other people. Is he ignorant or is he evil? Because I really don't understand how the Canadians are stuck with this guy.
He's an invertebrate. Invertebrate. I don't think honestly, sometimes I was just up in Toronto talking to the community there. I spoke to about 1,200 supporters of Israel in Toronto. Their general feeling is that, their feeling, and not mine, is that he's not the brightest bulb on the tree, and he doesn't have a backbone. And
that's what I think.
And it's going to go with the wind. And I've had some interaction with him, and this community. I correspond with John Baird. Do you remember John?
No.
John was he was a foreign minister of Canada under the very pro-Israel government, and these people are distraught, and the pro-Israel community in Canada, which is a very big community, is distraught by this.
Well, what I do not understand is when world leaders step up and ignore the reality of how the IDF is conducting this war, which is according to the laws of armed conflict and probably plus some. They're being so careful at Shifa Hospital and everywhere else. And then you get just a moron come out like Justin Trudeau and Macron and say you're killing women and children. And I just think they're ignorant. Do they not have advisors? Do they not learn these things?
Macron at least walked it back a bit. And it's interesting to get about Biden last night. Biden said, Israel's losing soldiers. He said this to the press, but Israel's losing soldiers because of the cautionary steps it's taken to limit Palestinian casualties. He said the following line. You have to look at the text. He says, if this was us, we would have done much, much worse. It's very funny. And it's so true. It's so true. America would have smashed them. No, these guys are not just invertebrates. They're afraid. They're afraid, and they haven't internalized that if we lose, they're next. And they have large populations that are supportive of Hamas, not just ideologically, but theologically. And Canada's the same. And almost similar percentage points in Canada as there is in France. And
so, Michael, I'm going to ask Dan Senor this question. I want you to have the first bite at the apple. Holocaust is a terrible thing. 9 million Jews in Europe before the Holocaust, 1.5 million afterwards, left in the camp between 250,000 and 300,000 survivors. But it served as a sort of pyrophylactic plant, the sort of plant that only grows after a terrible fire. Is that going to have the same impact on Israel as the first Holocaust did, that 10/7 is going to burn away a lot of people and injure a lot of people, but Israel be resilient and grow back stronger?
I think about that question a lot. It's so funny that you should answer that question this morning. I was thinking about it just last night. And I was asked that question by the group in Philadelphia, very similar question. I said, keep in mind that the State of Israel was founded in May 1948. It's exactly 3 years, almost to the date, after VE Day, after the end of the Holocaust. So here you have a people that has just lost 1 out of every 3 of its members in the Holocaust and turns around and creates an independent state in its ancient homeland with nothing, with no resources, no allies, enough bullets to fight for 1 week, and they're invaded by 6 Arab armies. And look what we created. So we are the world's most resilient people. We've been around for 4,000 years, for a good reason, and we've overcome expulsions and oppression on an extraordinary level. We're going to come back from this even stronger. I'm actually convinced of that. I know that we're going to come back stronger. It is excruciatingly painful. I mean, yesterday you had me on, and I broke out crying because I just learned about this young woman, Noah Marciano, who had been killed, and I had spent time with her mother. It's personally excruciating, but we're going to come back stronger, much stronger. And the horrible irony of this is, it took Hamas to remind us that we are one people, that we are a nation, that we are a family. It's taking, hopefully, Hamas to remind the clear-sighted leaders of the world, people who have moral clarity, and Justin Trudeau does not join that, and is not in that group, who can actually see that this is a battle between civilization and evil and darkness, and will stand up for that civilization. I can't
Dr. Oren, safe travels to you, to my home region in Cleveland, and wherever else you're going, because you're the Iron Man when it comes to doing these missions. And remember, IsraelRescue.org, IsraelRescue.org. Talk to you soon, Dr. Oren. Thank you for spending extra time with me today.